is absolutely no indication that the Jack Smith grand jury actually indicted Donald Trump yesterday. Well, other than Trump's cryptic social media post at 4:33 Eastern, literally minutes after the grand jury went home for the day, reading, quote, "So let's get this straight. The Democrat slimeballs in Congress impeached me and are now indicting me over their continuing illegal and long-running witch hunt," unquote. Saner people than you and I have gone mad trying to parse Trump's 750-year-long tortured relationship with both the English language and all of human speech. But Trump posted that, complete with those 4 key words, "are now indicting me," and then an hour later he reposted it. Would Trump know more about what was going on in that grand jury room yesterday than the rest of us? Well, presumably only if, when he was offered in the second target letter the opportunity to testify to or ask for others to testify to the D.C. grand jury, he had actually availed himself of it and sent an attorney with a witness or with evidence to submit, and they happened to be there yesterday. It is still damned fascinating, though, that he would post such a thing literally minutes after the grand jury broke for the day. Then again, the odds against that happening drop significantly when you realize the volume of crap Trump can post in one day. The last time I looked, about 9 p.m. Eastern last night, he had posted 56 different things. And he had not started posting yesterday until 12:30 yesterday afternoon. 56. Trump posted an article yesterday about how somebody thought he did real good in the CNN town hall, which was, checks sundial, just 77 days ago. Trump also posted a claim that Joe Biden stole documents while he was a senator and that John Durham was the victim of a cover-up. And there were also a dozen or so ads warning about the horrible fate of Chong from Cheech and Chong. Trump did not post, for the first time in several days, any of a series of memes that read that January 6th was, quote, "the day the government staged a riot." And there is speculation that somebody finally pointed out to him that on January 6th, he was the government. And that just because the meme was posted by an authoritative source like Ted Nugent, that was no reason anybody should believe it. Back on this planet, the New York Times has reported it has confirmed Monday's report that the former acting Deputy Attorney General Rich Donahue had confirmed on the record that he did subject himself to an interview with Smith's attorneys. Topics, he wouldn't say. Individuals, he wouldn't say. We can only hope Donahue was asked what the House committee asked him about, the possible appointment of Jeffrey Clark as Attorney General, so he could make up the fraud Trump wanted and seize the voting machines as Trump wanted. And we can only hope Donahue told them what he told the committee and what he told Clark in the time. Quote, "You're an environmental lawyer. How about you go back to your office and we'll call you when there's an oil spill." There was also a minor development in the Georgia case, but of course Georgia may hinge on whether or not charges specifically about Georgia are included in Jack Smith's charges, and presumably in that case Jack Smith actually would go first. The Guardian, whichever the case is, quotes 2 sources briefed on the matter as saying that Fani Willis has narrowed potential charges against Trump in Georgia and or other defendants in Georgia to, quote, "criminal solicitation to commit election fraud and conspiracy to commit election fraud, as well as solicitation of a public or political officer to fail to perform their duties, and solicitation to destroy, deface, or remove ballots." And there was also a minor development from Erie, Pennsylvania. Trump is holding one of his Klan rallies there Saturday, and Erie's mayor wants as much as $35,000 up front because a 2018 Trump Klan rally in Erie ran up that much in extra costs for the city that had to be picked up by its taxpayers, and Trump's campaign is still stiffing the good citizens of Erie for a reimbursement on that $35,000 large, and Erie Mayor Joe Schember assumes Trump is going to do it again. So, there is no reason to expect news of any indictments today. The first set, the stolen documents indictments, were revealed to Trump right after they were handed up on Thursday, June 8th. And the Washington grand jury has also met Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we have the day off. There is a hearing scheduled today, though, an oversight subcommittee hearing on UFOs, or as they are now called, UAPs. And what a plot twist it would be if the UFO hearing is really about Trump. Or at least we might hold out hope that we will get to the bottom of why Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee is not chairing that hearing as planned. And what did the aliens do with Burchett's beard? Trump did come up yesterday at the sentencing of one of his stochastic patsies, Brian Gunderson, the Nimrod who wore his high school letterman's jacket to the coup. Pro tip, don't. Prosecutors asked, quote, what happens the next time a criminal indictment comes down against someone he likes, and noted that the person for whom Gunderson stormed the Capitol, quote, is still out there telling lies about the election. I wonder who they mean. Gunderson, 18 months. However, Trump stayed mostly off stage. He did manage to underscore from off stage just how much he owns much of the House Republican Fascist Caucus and how much they in turn own Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy, so thus how much he, Trump, owns Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy. House Ways and Means Chairman Jason Smith of Missouri has filed a brief in federal district court in Delaware seeking to prevent the plea deal that the Justice Department and Hunter Biden agreed to, which the judge in the case was to consider today. Smith and others are still pushing the testimony of that DOJ agent who said his demands for more serious tax prosecutions of the president's son were suspiciously rejected by the department's actual tax experts. And he was then forced to admit under oath that nearly all of his demands for more serious tax prosecutions of everybody he investigated were rejected by the department's tax experts. If the Trumpian fascination with Hunter Biden is not explicable to you, here it is in brief. Trump is corrupt. He was impeached twice. His adult sons are corrupt, and at least one is widely, publicly suspected of rampant substance use. In Trump's world, for half a century, the best defense against truths like that is to locate your most dangerous rival and fabricate evidence that he and his family are just as guilty as you are, or more guilty, or permit your cultists to believe the other guys are guilty and you aren't, and that the claims about you have been fabricated to deflect the evidence against them. So that's the chairman of Ways and Means. As to the Speaker of the House, reduced from being second in the presidential line of succession to diverting attention from Trump's poop stains by spreading other poop in other directions, even as his House caucus continues to spectacularly self-own on these Keystone Cops-like investigations of Biden and son, continually stepping on rakes, like one secret witness turning out to be a fugitive Chinese agent running guns to Iran, and another secret witness who keeps forgetting to show up to testify and now will not testify under oath if he shows up. Even though the entirety of the billion-dollar right-wing imitation news machine has been devoted and dedicated to this cause and has managed to move nothing into the actual news media, despite all that, Kevin McCarthy continues to try to play Renfield to Trump's Dracula by impeaching, or seeming to impeach, Joe Biden and to somehow unimpeach Trump. Monday night, McCarthy told Sean Hannity that, quote, this is rising to the level of impeachment inquiry. But by yesterday morning, McCarthy was saying that when he said this is rising to the level of impeachment inquiry, he wasn't saying it is rising to the level of impeachment inquiry. He was saying it would be rising. Quote, the actions that I'm seeing by this administration withholding the agencies from being able to work with us, that would rise to the level of an impeachment inquiry. And then he posited if evidence continues to rise to the level of an impeachment inquiry, House Republicans will act. Just in case this was still too clear, McCarthy then added, "We've got a number of people coming in. They could come forward with all the information these committees are requesting, and we wouldn't have to rise to that." It is rising. It might rise. It doesn't have to rise. So, even for the notoriously wind-blown Kevin McCarthy, the man with the perpetual look of a low-rent bald eagle who can't quite figure out whether gusts are coming in from the southeast or the northwest, this is amazingly eat your cake and keep it too. Fox's congressional reporter writes, quote, "Fox is told those are something of high-level trial balloons." The reason is that McCarthy wants to get a sense of what GOPers want to do. To ask those GOPers. And most importantly, where the votes may lie for impeaching anyone, unquote. Look, Kevin, you're missing the obvious. You've got this UFO hearing today. This would be perfect for an impeachment. Think of all the aliens you can impeach. Also of interest here, so of course climate change is worse than we thought or anybody saw coming in one way. We are discovering how in Italy, where it is not only 115 degrees on the coast, but the way to survive that, which we call air conditioning, is not working there because 115 degrees also will collapse your electrical infrastructure. And speaking of collapsing, there's this guy, Greg Gutfeld on Fox, who just defended his network's agreement with Ron DeSantis that slavery really helped the slaves by teaching them skills. He defended that by saying that those with useful skills were the ones who survived the Holocaust and the Nazi death camps. And no, the entirety of what he said is actually far worse than I am describing it right now. That's next. This is Countdown.
This is Countdown with, Keith Olbermann.
Postscripts to the news, some headlines, some updates, some snark, some predictions. Dateline Catania in Italy. All right, you can tell me you've thought about this. As the climate crisis worsens and gets out of hand and the atmosphere dies, you are not going to be the one who voluntarily gives up the last air conditioner, are you? I've thought about it. Well, we can let ourselves off the guilt hook, because the air conditioning will probably die long before we will. In Catania on the Sicilian coast, it hit 115 degrees over the weekend, and the city was not built for 115 degrees, literally not built that way. Much of the underground electrical grid melted. It is called underground climate change. There is evidence of it under Chicago right now. But to what happened over the weekend in Italy, 300,000 residents without air conditioning or anything else electrical for a while, or water. The wiring for the pumping stations also melted. Power rationed throughout most of the city. They did fix the water pumps, but the best so far in the AC is special air-conditioned rooms for the elderly, which, if you have seen the movie, is something predicted in the 70s climate disaster and enforced government-organized cannibalism film Soylent Green with Charlton Heston. You know, you tell everybody, you gotta tell them, Soylent Green is people! It's people! Thank you, Nancy Faust. Yum, yum. Dateline, Galveston, Texas, full-on McCarthyism at Texas A&M University. Professor Joy Alonzo had given a routine lecture, but one of the students was the daughter of the Texas State Land Commissioner, and she narked on Professor Alonzo to her mother because the professor had allegedly, and we don't know how, but had allegedly disparaged Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Within hours, the professor had been placed on administrative leave for being critical of the lieutenant governor. Couple things. Wasn't that the guy who said he was willing to die to preserve the Texas economy for his grandchildren during COVID? Well, we're waiting. Also, the creeping fascism in Texas can be addressed. Colleges and universities in other states simply should not recognize Texas high school diplomas, and employers in other states should not recognize Texas college and university degrees. Also, this sidebar. Imagine my surprise when I read the Texas Tribune headline for this story, quote, Texas A&M put professor on leave for allegedly criticizing Dan Patrick. Go on. Dateline, the White House. Well, the secret is out. The great Biden scandal has been proved. It is time to impeach Commander, the first German Shepherd. He has gone on a one-dog rampage against the Secret Service, and all of it has been unearthed by America's top defender of truth, justice, and something, Tom Fitton, the non-lawyer chief of Judicial Watch, the guy who, ironically given his name, can't find a shirt that fits him.
Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton here with some news. The Secret Service just gave us documents that show that Joe Biden's dog, Commander, has attacked Secret Service personnel repeatedly at the White House. At least 10 incidents, one of which led to a uniformed Secret Service officer being sent to the hospital. I don't know what's going on over there in the Biden White House, that the family thinks that their dogs should be able to attack 10 or so Secret Service agents, the folks who are defending their lives without much being done about it. Well, something was done about it. The Secret Service tried to cover it up, and it was Judicial Watch heavy lifting in court that exposed this scandal of abuse of Secret Service personnel by the Biden family, and now we know by the Secret Service itself. Some terrible personal dark corruption going on over there in the Biden White House.
That's Tom Fitton doing the Lord's work. That's the non-lawyer Trump gets his key legal advice from, and I just want to say this once again. Tom, keep telling Trump exactly what he wants to hear. You are our best hope. Still ahead on Countdown, tomorrow is Uma Thurman Day. 12 years to the day of the day that looked like it was going to be one of the best days of my life, but turned out to be one of the most underwhelming imaginable. Things I promised not to tell ahead. First time for the daily roundup of the miscreants, morons, and Dunning-Kruger effect specimens who constitute today's worst persons in the world. The bronze, shared by Elon Musk and Sean Hannity, and when you think of them together like that, at least Hannity knows he's an idiot. After LeBron James' son Bronny suffered cardiac arrest while at a college basketball practice, he's apparently fine now. Both Musk and Hannity suggested it was caused by the COVID vaccine, because no basketball player ever suffered cardiac arrest before COVID or the vaccine, other than Reggie Lewis when he died in 1993. Hank Gathers in 1990, Pete Maravich in 1988, Len Bias in 1986, John Postley in 1970. Never happened before. The runner-up, Congressman Andy Ogles of Tennessee, co-author with Senator Mike "I didn't do January 6th" Lee, of a resolution trying to prevent the media from, quote, sensationalizing mass murderers. Try to keep the media from giving them the publicity they crave when they're dead. The Breitbart article complimenting these two slugheads on this resolution uses the term glorification of mass murderers. As Tennessee State Rep Justin Jones noted on Twitter, or whatever it's called this week, last Christmas, Congressman Don't Sensationalize Mass Murderers Ogles posted a Christmas card showing himself, his wife, and two of his three children carrying long guns. The smallest child instead carries a sign saying "Peace," which I presume is meant ironically. Incidentally, neither the resolution nor the Breitbart article about mass murderers and this resolution mentions the word gun. But the winner, Greg Gutfeld, the new 10 p.m. host on Fox, quote, News, unquote. First, Fox defended slavery in this country because it supposedly taught useful skills to the slaves who didn't die, and all the slaves became blacksmiths. Just like Ron DeSantis says. Hundreds and thousands of blacksmiths in the 19th century. Now Fox has moved on to this Gutfeld idiot, implying that Jews who were tortured and murdered in the death camps had simply failed to become, quote, useful, and thus they did not survive the Holocaust while the useful Jews did. Quote, "Did you ever read Man's Search for Meaning?" Gutfeld asked another Fox loser. Viktor Frankl talks about how you had to survive in a concentration camp by having skills. You had to be useful. Utility. Utility kept you alive, unquote. Which is not at all what Frankl says. Frankl noted that when it came to Jews and others that the Nazis could use as slave labor or slave servants, they killed them last. The Daily Beast quotes a Fox staffer as saying that at any other television outlet, Gutfeld, who poses as an intellectual by perching his glasses at the end of his nose, and also amazingly considers himself a comedian, would have been fired and his career would have been over. Greg, but not at Fox. Fox, rationalizing the Holocaust since 1996. Gutfeld, 2 days. Worst person in the world! And now to the number one story on the countdown and my favorite topic. Me and I saw her on TV recently, so I flashed back and shuddered all over again. Yes, it's things I promised not to tell. I suspect that until the day I actually die, no day will have started so well with such promise, yet ended so badly with such a clanging thud as Wednesday, July 27th, 2011 did. Near midnight, 2 nights earlier, I had just entered my New York apartment back from a New York Yankees game when the last landline telephone I ever owned began to ring. "Hi, Keith, it's Uma." Yeah. How many Umas could there be? It was the actress Uma Thurman. We had texted briefly. We had never met. We had never spoken. We spoke for 90 minutes, and she was self-deprecating and vulnerable and razor-sharp and warm, and she invited me to coffee on the afternoon of D-Day, Wednesday, July 27th, 2011. One of the producers I had hired to do the new version of Countdown on Al Gore's network, Current TV, happened to know Uma Thurman from the gym. Erica Ferrari was her name, and she was great, and she and Uma Thurman had become close enough that Uma had unloaded all her relationship issues on Erica, and the next thing I knew, Erica was in my office explaining to me that when she explained to Uma where she worked and with whom, Uma said, "The Keith Olbermann?" And now I was being set up for drinks or dinner or coffee or something with Uma Thurman. So this seemed like a good day. Then 2 nights earlier, we had finally had this marvelous, warm conversation, and Uma Thurman had suggested coffee on Wednesday at 2:30 or so in one of the 2 or 3 places in Midtown near my studio, and she'd text me with details, and she couldn't wait. Simultaneously with this, the CEO of the Current TV network, Mark Rosenthal, called me up and invited me to dinner on Wednesday, July 27th, 2011. Going to be a busy day. Al Gore and Current had hired me even before I left MSNBC. That was what that was all about. And I had met and gotten to know everybody in the organization over the following 6 months before we finally got the show on the air in June. We got off to a good start, even though Current TV was available only in low-def digital cable. On its first night, Countdown on Current beat both MSNBC's Lawrence O'Donnell show and CNN's Elliot Spitzer show in the so-called demo ratings, measuring viewers aged 18 to 54. But by July 27th, 2011, so like 2 months later, it was evident to me that the network was run by 4 kinds of people. 1, this CEO, Rosenthal, who used to be at MTV and knew what he was doing. 2, some dilettantes who did not know how to plug in a television, let alone put stuff on one. 3, co-owner Al Gore, who meant well, but who had absolutely no judgment when it came to business partners. And 4, in a class by himself, Gore's business partner Joel Hyatt, who had made one superb business decision in 1977 that earned him billions of dollars, and he sold everything, and then it earned him billions of dollars again. But he had literally never gotten anything right since 1977, while at the same time thinking he had never gotten anything wrong since 1977. He was a liberal. Unfortunately, he was a liberal Donald Trump. What was worse was that of all these people, only Mark Rosenthal understood how ruinously incompetent Joel Hyatt really was. Rosenthal had been president of MTV from 1996 through 2004, and whatever you thought of all those reality shows and The Real World and stuff like that, they were successes. He knew what he was doing, and he knew Joel Hyatt didn't. And Mark Rosenthal had invited me to dinner as soon as my show was over on Wednesday night, July 27, 2011, about 7 hours after I was scheduled to have coffee with Uma Thurman as a dry run for a date. And Rosenthal told me he had figured out how we could, in effect, take control of the current TV network away from this Joel Hyatt, and not only exploit the good start Countdown had made, but build on it and make current TV into the liberal news network we had been intending to create and knew would be a success. Dinner would be our chance for him to explain it to me, to hatch our plan. It was a big, big day. I think, without me going into detail, you intuitively get the Uma Thurman part of what July 27th, 2011 was supposed to be, but I need to put a little bit more meat on the bones of why it was so important at current TV. This is who this guy Hyatt was. That same producer who was doing her best to set up Uma Thurman and me, Erica. She walked in one day, white as the sheet of paper she was carrying, at arm's length as if it had been printed in bubonic plague. She had found, while surfing around internet archives, a New York Times article about this Joel Hyatt, an article from April 13, 1990. You remember the movie Philadelphia, where the evil head of the law firm, portrayed by the actor Jason Robards, had fired the head of his Philadelphia office, played by Tom Hanks, because the Hanks character had AIDS? And Hanks' character got, as his lawyer, a character played by Denzel Washington? Well, this guy who co-owned Current TV with Al Gore, he was the Jason Robards character. He had fired from his law firm, Hyatt Legal Services, the head of his Philadelphia office, Clarence B. Kane, after finding out Clarence B. Kane had AIDS. In fact, reality was actually worse than the Philadelphia movie. In real life, Clarence B. Kane was also African American. The Times story that Erica Ferrari handed me, like it was printed on razor blades, recounted how a federal judge had not only ordered Hyatt Legal Services to pay Mr. Kane $157,000 plus costs, but how it had ordered them to pay him immediately, like in the next couple days. This was harrowing enough, but the final paragraph made my head swim. Quote, "What pained him most," Mr. Hyatt said, was the notion that his firm discriminated. He noted how it had, after all, named a gay black man to run one of its major offices, something no law firm its size has ever knowingly done. Quote, "What's totally lost in the shuffle is that this is an organization in which anyone can succeed," he said. "No one has written about that." That was this guy Hyatt in a nutshell. He fired a gay black man who was dying of AIDS, but he knew who the real victim here was: himself. And it's not like Hyatt had improved over the years. As I mentioned, the night Countdown premiered on Current TV, June 20th, 2011. We beat MSNBC and CNN in the ratings, but we didn't know it. The next day, our ratings showed that we had beaten CNN and just missed beating O'Donnell on MSNBC. A few weeks later, one of those networks got a friendly reporter to write a story about how, since the debut, our ratings on Current had sunk, which was to be expected and which was a totally legitimate competitive thing for the MSNBC guys to do. But the numbers were all wrong. The ratings for Countdown that were included in the pro-CNN, pro-MSNBC story were somehow higher than the ratings we saw every day at Current. If I'm not clear about this, the story said that, say, on Monday, July 11th, we had 100,000 demo viewers. But our ratings, the ratings we got from the Nielsen Company, they said that on Monday, July 7th, we didn't have 100,000 demo viewers. We only had 75,000 demo viewers. Well, something was really, really wrong here. So when Hyatt called me for our weekly phone chat, I said, look, there's something wrong with the ratings. And I explained the article to him, and he said, oh, I knew they were going to do that. Show how your ratings had dropped. And I said, no, you're missing my point. They say we had higher ratings than we actually did. Oh, I knew they were going to do that too, he said with even more condescension. And I said, why would they do that? Why would they try to make us look better? Oh, I knew they were going to do that too, just to... Then there was a long pause while Joel Hyatt made something up. Just to mess with us. I asked him, since he had personally purchased the ratings package from the Nielsen Company, the first ratings in the history of Current TV, if he could just review for me what he remembered of the process. Well, I went in and made an excellent deal. I saved $2,000 on their initial price point. This man was worth a couple $2 billion. They wanted us to buy not just the live ratings, but something called Live plus Diver. I thought for a moment. Diver? I said. You mean Live plus DVR? He laughed. Yes, that's it. Diver. What the hell is Diver? You just use the live ratings in TV. Everybody knows that. I explained to him that Diver ratings were comparatively new, about 3-4 years old at that point. They added to the live rating people who would watch the show on their DVR within 24 hours of having recorded it. He had bought the ratings that did not include all of those people, so that when we got what we thought were our ratings for our premiere night, when we beat CNN and almost beat MSNBC but just missed, we didn't just miss. The ratings package this idiot Hyatt had bought did not include anybody who watched the show on their DVRs. And that cost us the chance to come out and say, we beat CNN and MSNBC the first night with this crappy low-def picture down on channel 103. But more importantly, it saved this billionaire idiot Hyatt $2,000. So, Mark Rosenthal was taking me to dinner hours after I was to have coffee with Uma Thurman to explain how we could get rid of this idiot who thought DVR meant Diver. Thus was July 27th, 2011, going to be one of the turning points in my life. And then, about 1:45, just when Uma said she was going to text me to tell me where to meet her for coffee, she texted me all right. She texted me to explain her rehearsal was running long and she had to postpone. And while I was reading between those lines and knowing that that actually meant she was going back with her boyfriend or her husband or whoever he was, a company email came into all of our inboxes. And even before I opened it, I could hear mass groaning coming from my newsroom. Mark Rosenthal, 7 hours before our dinner to plot how to root around Joel Diver / Jason Robards in Philadelphia / I saved $2,000 Hyatt, Mark Rosenthal had been fired. And he'd been replaced as CEO of Current TV, effective immediately by co-owner Joel Hyatt. Well, holy diver. It'd be a better story if I never saw Mark Rosenthal or Uma Thurman again in my life, but it wouldn't be true. I saw Mark many times, and then 4 years later I was at a New York recording studio doing the voice of the newsman character Tom Jumbo Grumbo on the great animated series BoJack Horseman when one of the other studio doors opened and out stepped Uma Thurman. Radiant, elegant. I introduced myself, she smiled, she said she was a fan, she laughed, and she said, "You know, we must have coffee sometime." I've done all the damage I can do here. Thank you for listening. Here are the credits. Most of the music arranged, produced, and performed by Brian Ray and John Philip Chanel. They are the Countdown musical directors. Guitars, bass, and drums by Brian Ray. All orchestration and keyboards by John Philip Chanel. Produced by TKO Brothers. Other Beethoven selections have been arranged and performed by the group No Horns Allowed. The sports music is the Olbermann theme from ESPN2. It was written by Mitch Warren Davis, courtesy of ESPN Inc. Musical comments from Nancy Faust, the best baseball stadium organist ever. Our announcer today was my friend Richard Lewis, and everything else was pretty much my fault. Remember, Countdown now also available on YouTube. That's Countdown for this, the 932nd day since Donald Trump's first attempted coup against the democratically elected government of the United States. Arrest him again while we still can. The next scheduled countdown is tomorrow, bulletins as the news warrants. Till then, I'm Keith Olbermann. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, and good luck.